Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a new episode of Nuggets of Wisdom. Today, I'm having the honor to have with me Ghafoor. And I just connected with him on Clubhouse. You're probably aware of this new movement, the buzz that is happening. And Alam was just sharing a bit of his story, and that literally caught my attention. And now, today is the first time I actually see him, because Clubhouse is audio only, and I'm so happy I had him because he has this beautiful, big, wild smile and positive attitude that I love bringing out into the show. So today, without further ado, I want to introduce you Ghafoor. Alam is a negotiation expert. He's been negotiating for 30 plus years. He just said to me actually, he was negotiating since he was a baby, but also he has this fascinating story when he got abducted in the Middle East and he had to negotiate his way out of this, and also how this shaped his journey as a negotiation expert. So help me in welcoming today Alam to the show. Alam, how are you today?
Hi there, Sebastian. I'm wonderful, wonderful. Listen, man, I love your energy. I love your smile. That's a great introduction. Thank you so much. And it's a privilege to be here. I really appreciate the chance to share my story. So thank you.
All right, so let's dive right in. What is the origin story? If we go back to the origin, what started shaping you in the negotiation expert that you are? And who have you become?
Right. Okay.
So
it's a great question. Listen, so briefly, look, in my younger days, I was growing up in Southeast London. And instead of doing a paper round or cleaning cars or doing a regular stuff, I used to go down to the fruit and veg market down at Covent Garden and go and haggle and barter and trade against the traders in buying the stock with my dad. I'd go down to the auction houses and watch the auctions for the big properties and the foreign properties. I was just thrown into an adult world from a young age. So I grew up negotiating, communicating, bartering, haggling, everything around adults, and treated as an adult because I could hold my own. So then fast forward to the thing that really shaped me, which was in 2005, while on a business trip in the Middle East. I was over in Dubai. I was busy negotiating for some property, for some real estate. And one evening, while having a meal with some friends in one of the downtown restaurants situated inside of a hotel, some gentlemen came into the restaurant, regular looking gentlemen, normal clothing, nothing unknowing, and asked us to step outside. So they took us into the hotel lobby, and the next thing I know is that they're diving into my pocket, they're pulling my phone out, they're pulling my keys out, they're pulling my money, and then suddenly they push me out of the door, push me straight out of the hotel into a waiting car. And then a gentleman turns around, he pulls a gun out of the glove compartment, somebody puts some cuffs on me, and next thing I get bagged. My friends throw next to me, and we're driven off at high speed, driven off into the night, into the desert. You can feel the road change from the smooth tarmac to the bump, bump, bump. And I thought, damn, I'm about to be driven into the middle of the desert and shot in the head. The car eventually stops, and I'm dragged into a building. I'm placed in a chair and my feet are cuffed, and I sit there waiting. And after some time, the door flies open. There's voices all around me, screaming and shouting, English and Urdu and Pashto and all these different dialects. And then somebody punches me in the head, pulls the hood off, and then I have a finger pointing me in the face. You better speak. We know who you are. You are the terrorist mastermind behind the London bombings. Wow. You can imagine my head went in and out, my throat constricted, my heart was boom, boom, boom. I thought, this is unbelievable. And I couldn't speak. I didn't know whether I was having a nightmare, and I'm trying to gather my thoughts. And I said, look, I think you've got the wrong guy here. My name's Ghafoor. Why don't you call the British consulate? No, we don't need to call anybody. We know who you are. We need to know your other names. I said, I don't have any other names. Alam Ghafoor is the only name I have. No, we have evidence of you being in Afghanistan. We have pictures of you and videos of you in training camps. We know you are an expert in explosives. All these accusations coming at me. You've killed all these people in London. You've injured all these people. You are going to die here. You better start giving us some answers. So as you can imagine, Sebastian, my whole world was turned upside down in the blink of an eye. And so then I was interrogated and tortured psychologically and physically, dehumanized. Around the clock, I was told I was going to die there. I was going to be fed to the dogs. I was going to be shot. I was going to be hung. I was going to be one interrogator, he said to me, I want to take you and put you into solitary confinement for the rest of your life. And every single day I'm going to come with a doctor and I am going to put you through so much pain that you will pass out and the doctor will revive you so I can carry on torturing you and giving you pain, and you will beg me to end your life. And I will do this and I will keep you alive for 20 years. So this is being told to me around the clock, Sebastian. You know, it's such an intense experience. I'm getting sleep deprived. I'm being given bad food that's making me sick and throw up. And then eventually when I do get into and taken to a shower, they turn it up so that it's extremely hot and it scalds me. You know, so I'm going through all of this experience. And at first I thought, that's it, I'm going to die here, accept that. But the concern was, how will it affect my family? So this is what was going on in my head initially. And then after, I don't know whether it was a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever, something snapped in me. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to die begging for my life. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die on my terms. So everything I know about human nature, about the human mind, the psychology of people, personality profiling, body language, micro expressions, linguistics. I started watching the interrogators, how they would come and go, because they always came, it was always in pairs. There was always two at a time. I started paying close attention to little things. And then I started turning them against each other if they happen to come in by their own and say, oh, where's your boss? Oh, he's not my boss. Oh, I thought he was your boss. The way he comes in, you have to open the door and hold it for him. I don't have to do this. I don't have. Oh, sorry, you know. And so I started planting ideas and things in their heads, trying to play them off. I don't think that other guy respects you. Oh, why? Because look, he doesn't let you speak. You never speak when you come with him, and now you're speaking, you know, as if you're the main man. Oh, yeah. So all of these kind of things started coming out. And then I was put on polygraph tests. I was accused of being the biggest liar they'd ever interrogated in 20 years of interrogation, that they'd freed my friends and let them go. And so it went on. So like I said, as I started breaking down the whole interactions and figuring these guys out and then turning it, so I went from pleading for my innocence to saying to them, okay, if I'm the guy, then you know what you need to do. You need to put me on to the media. You need to get me in front of the cameras so that I can tell the world that my people will be taken over. Because I'm thinking, you put me on camera, somebody in the UK is going to see me and think, this poor bastard is innocent, right? Let's get him out of there. This is what I'm thinking. Yeah. And we don't have to do anything. I said, look, you need to make a phone call to the British consulate. You need to let them know I'm here. No, you're under our control. Nobody knows you're here. Nobody will ever know that you disappeared or where you came. And I said, well, listen, you know, this is what you have to be prepared for. You got to understand. Now you've got me. So this is at a later stage. I turned it around and I said, okay, now that you've got me, you know, I'm prepared to die, and you're going to make me into a hero to all of my followers. And I'm going to go to heaven and I'm going to be with all those virgins. Ooh. And I said, but you know what's going to happen to you? I said, my people are going to come for you and they're going to take your family and everybody around you. and you're going to see the destruction. They will destroy everybody around you, but you will be left alone. Because
Wow.
then every day of your life, when you get up and you brush your teeth and you look in a mirror or you go past a glass wall, you'll see me smiling at you. You'll see me smiling at you, surrounded by my virgins. I said, but there won't be nobody for you. And you'll think to yourself, if I'd let that guy go, if I'd let that innocent man go, then all of these people wouldn't die. You know, and it was, so this whole thing came about, and so there was a point where one of the guys, he accused me of being an innocent terrorist, and that's why I wrote my book and called it The Innocent Terrorist. So all of these things went on, and then towards the back end of it, you know, I mean, I even pulled a trick on them where once they brought me an open glass of water. So normally they would bring me the small cups that you get on a plane with the foil wrapping. At one time I said, look, I'm really thirsty, can you bring me a glass of water? So they turned up with a regular cup. So what I did was I poured it on my sleeve and I smelt it and I rubbed it. And I said, what do you think this is? Do you think I'm an idiot? And then they looked shocked, and I said, it's sodium pentothal. So sodium pentothal, I remembered from the film Meet the Fockers. He injects him with it. It's a truth drug. So I say to these guys, this is sodium pentothal. You think you can poison me? You know how many people try to poison me, and you think you idiots are going to do that? I threw the water. I said, get out of here. I said, bring your boss here. I'm ready to die. Tell him I write the confession. So then they come along and they give me this pen and paper, and I start writing down, look, Saddam Hussein is a good friend of mine. Osama bin Laden, I spoke to him last week. And this is how I did this. I went to Hezbollah.com and I built the bomb and I did all of this stuff with these guys. And then they said, well, how did you raise the money? So I said, well, you know, how did I raise the money? I did a sponsored bike ride. So I told him I did a sponsored bike ride and I wrote this down. And he said, what else did you do? And I said, the thing that I'm about to write down now, when you tell the British government that you have me, this single thing is going to let them know that I am the man they want. And I wrote down, I held many fates across the country. Fate, F-E-T-E-S, fates. A fate in the UK is a church fate. It's where you take a cake and you sell it on a stand in order to raise some money. And I said, you tell the government this guy's been holding fates all across the UK, and that's how he raised the money for the bombing. I said, and MI6 will know straight away that I am the man they want. So this kind of crazy situation came about, Sebastian, right? And then they said, okay, you sign your name. And then somebody else came and he said, you put your thumbprint on it. And I did that. And then somebody else came, you need to do an X like this. And then after all of this, they took me to a cell and they said, okay, in the morning, the judge is going to pass judgment on you and tomorrow you die. So they took me to the cell. It must have been a couple of hours I was in there. I just sat there. And then in the morning, I was dragged out of there. I was taken to a barber. He gave me a haircut and a shave. And then they hooded me up, threw me in the back of a car, took me to another building, took me into an office and sat me there. And then the door opened and then I found out the British consulate came in and they're like, look, we've been trying to find out where you are. They wouldn't tell us. We only found out 2 days ago. We need to get you out of here. It's really dangerous for you. And then what happened over the next 24 hours is another adventure, which I don't want to really go into. It was crazy, man. Eventually I got out of there and I came back to the UK. Now, at that point when I was in there, I did not think I would ever make it out alive. So I had to accept my fate. And you know what? It was a crazy realization that once I accepted, okay, you know what? I'm about to die here, whichever way it's going to be. Whether they do it instantly by shooting me or hanging me, or whether they throw me in a pit full of dogs and the dogs rip me to shred, from shred to shred, and or whether this guy is going to torture me, I figured, you know what, if that happens, that's the case of, you know what, you just have to blank it out of your mind and you have to take the pain. Your body will only take as much pain as it wants to, and then you've got to know that there's a release. You're going to die at some point, so that's that. So as you can imagine, the after effects of all of that and then coming back to normal life and then being paranoid that I'd been stitched up and that I could have possibly been set up, and I still could be, was crazy, and the oscillations in my mental state were horrendous. I suffered PTSD. I had a psychological report done on that, an assessment, and my relationship at the time suffered very badly. My family, they started to see changes in me. You know, I'd get paranoid, I'd be frightened about stuff. I'd come back to the car and then I'd have to walk around the car, check the back seat, maybe look underneath to see if there was anything there, look around, see who was following. It was crazy, crazy stuff. So eventually then, you know what, I sat down, and through the writing and putting it all on paper with my experience, I actually started looking at, what did I learn about myself? What did I discover? You know, and how did I get through this intense period? And that is where it kind of, and it wasn't an easy process, Sebastian. I mean, I used to write a chapter and then I would curl up on the sofa for like 4 or 5 days before I could write another chapter, because it was very, very hard. And it took me a long time, man, to try and come to terms with this. So, you know, it's taken at least sort of 10 years to take all of the lessons and actually figure everything out. So it wasn't until 2015 that I finally, instead of the wild oscillations of my mind and everything, I actually became on a very level keel where, you know what, I'm happy, I'm positive. I have my down days. Don't forget, you know, I'm still a human being, normal. But because of what I went through, that is why now I have CEOs reaching out to me from all over the place, all over the world, especially this last year with the pandemic. They are so stressed and suffering from anxiety with the pandemic and with the situation that they've had to let staff go, and the business has suffered. Some of them have suffered very severely financially. And it's like, shit, you know, how do we get a grip on things? And so they've sought me out and they're like, listen, Alan, you know what? I need you to give me some help. I need you to give me some help, guidance and advice. So not only do I look at their business and give them a bird's eye view and figure out collaborations and things that they didn't see because they can't think straight, but also I actually sit with them and I go through a process where I actually break down all of their fears. And it takes a bit of time, obviously, and it's a continuous process.
We'll get back to that because I think that's necessary if you come out on the other side of such an experience, that you are like raised to a new level of expertise, of wisdom. You know, like you must have the insight. If you don't, it's actually the other way around. If you don't manage to raise to that new level of wisdom, you'll stay in that, what you said you went through, of this oscillation of like wanting to understand or blame instead of saying, oh, what was a blessing, and really understanding. I want to go back to, there are two things I want to go back to from that story. The first one, because it's something you're familiar with the hero's journey, are you? Like the Joseph Campbell. Like he studied all the mythology, and there's this cycle of the hero, like from like human to hero, and or you know, from in all the stories, in all the mythology. And there's one moment in the hero's journey that fascinates me because it's a pivotal moment. Right. There are actually really two pivotal moments. The first one is where the story starts, but there's this moment, and it's called the abyss. And in this abyss, there's like in all the stories, usually the more metaphorical, the more mythological they are, the more likely it is that a very likely outcome for the hero is to die. It's like 99% chance of dying. And even in like less dramatic stories, there's something that has to die. It's like the identity you have to let go of, a relationship that has to die, a job that has to die, a house that has to die, you know. But more importantly, it's the identity that has to die.
Right.
Or in your scenario, in your story, and in many stories, it's literal death. Like at least the way we define it in modern society is me, my ego, my biological self will die. And in all these stories, it's only when the hero is ready to die, not as like, oh, okay, kill me, but like, well, if that's how it's supposed to end, that's how it was supposed to end. There's no need resisting it and trying to go back. The only way is forward.
Yeah.
So maybe on the other, like if I go forward, I might die, but if I cannot go back. And there's like not resisting the progression of the story.
Right.
And it seemed to me when you shared your story that there was this very pivotal moment. You said after a couple of days, if I remember well, where you said, it's like, I'm gonna die here. Like it was not even like I might, it was like, I'm gonna die here, but at least because I accept this fate, I'll still regain control.
Exactly.
And like I use always the same example in Matrix because I find this moment in Matrix very visual. Is this moment where Neo is like, oh, yeah, whatever, and all of a sudden, because he's just like whatever, he starts being able to do all these things because he lets go of what of his identity. So just like I shared it on these perspectives, I want you to just relate without going back into the story, but more into the emotional moment when you say, you know, fuck it, you know, like I don't want to say it. It's not maybe the way you said it in your mind at that moment, but just like, well, I might as well enjoy it. Is there still something to learn? Is there something to play?
Exactly, Sebastian. That was the point. That was the point. Is like, look, you know what? I'm not gonna let you get the better of me and make me beg you for my life and my freedom. If you think you have that power over me because you've got me contained in here, you've got my body contained in here, my mind is elsewhere. But I'll tell you what, let me meet you head on, because you know what? The power that you think you've got over me, I will turn that power around and make that power become your fear. Because now all of a sudden I'm accepting that, okay, you know what? You've got me. You've got me. So this was going to be my fate anyway. So you know that I was prepared to die. And the thing was, now, because you're going to kill me, you're going to elevate my status. So, you know, you're actually doing me a favor, because now I go straight.
You know,
so now I'm prepared to go there, but you're going to remain here, but you're going to suffer the consequences of actually detaining me. Because you know what, for you to have ultimate freedom, you should have just, you know what, just sneak me out of here in order to save yourself and save your family. Right. You know, and it was that.
And I'm sorry, but I just cannot not see this scene because I don't know how well you remember Matrix. I just watched it again to refresh my memory. But it's when Morpheus is kidnapped and held hostage.
Right.
And then Neo, who at that moment, because he's been told by the Oracle that he's not the one, says, I don't care. I can die, but I am going to save Morpheus. So now the thing is, they don't have control. And that's what you're saying is like, you don't have power over me because I don't care if I die.
Right. Yeah,
and that's the only thing that got you power over me before that is because I was afraid to die. Right. And I was listening to Alan Watts yesterday, actually, talking about how also the monks in Japan use this, you know, to defend themselves against, like, I don't remember exactly who they were, but like some invaders or warriors. And they use their power of the monks was like showing the warriors that they were not afraid to die. And they said, well, in a very similar way of what you're saying is, for the warriors, that was scary because if they would kill the monks, they would never find out whether or not they were afraid to die.
Yeah, because this whole thing about power and authority and pride, you know, it's like, hey, I'm the one, right? And it's like, well, you're not the one, because you know what? Come and kill me, man. I'm holding my hands up. It doesn't mean nothing to me to die. It's the next step that was going to happen for me anyway. And you know, it's like, oh, you've just taken all of the power away. So that was it, man. And so it's that when you get to that point, Sebastian, and I'll tell you, man, I mean, you can have life coaches, you can have business coaches, and they tell you, I went through a tough divorce, I went through this situation, I went through that. Look, I don't demean those. I've been through those divorces myself, and shit, man, I've been through all of this crap. But the key thing is that, man, how many of you have actually faced death in a in what's going to be a very horrible, painful way, and then to actually in that moment accept it,
Mm.
because we all have a fear of death, and we all think we're going to live to 80, 90, 100, and then have a peaceful death with everybody around us holding our hand and saying thank you for a wonderful life. But that shit wasn't about to happen when I was held in there, and I thought, and that was the thing. It was like, okay, you know what, good or bad, man, this is the end for you, my friend. So you either die on your knees, or you bring them others to their knees mentally, and go out, go out on your strength.
Mm.
So that was it. That was the key moment, man. And you're right, with like the Matrix, man. It just, then the whole thing opens up, man. And then they're arguing with me that I must be innocent, and I'm arguing with them, no, I'm not innocent. So you need to do your actions, and they're pleading with me that, no, you must be innocent, and I said, no, no, I'm not
I
innocent.
love
So
that. So, which leads me to the second part, which is like, I, yeah, I'm sorry for you had to go from this, but I'm so grateful that you had the wisdom to extract like what was the gift of this experience. So I want to just go now into this, because that was like, in that moment you managed to play your cards in the best way possible. You bluffed basically, but
right,
in a way like, well, if I lose, I lose. You went all in. But I'm certain, and from what you shared earlier, that it's not something that you did once and then you like go back to, not having leave this experience. Obviously, this marks everything you do. So what I want to hear is, and I think it's twofold. One side, obviously, it has impacted you on how you handle your business, how you treat negotiation in every
right,
situation, and obviously you pass that on to the people you serve, all the CEOs, the businesses you help. You definitely pass that on. And I just want to put that on the angle to make that I find fascinating, because I fully agree, and that's one of the key things I help my client with, is to take a leap of faith. And this leap of faith is walking into the void, not knowing if something will catch you. And that is, they might not feel it as death, but we always feel that death. When a client
right,
says no, you're like, well, I won't have money to pay my rent, therefore I will live in the street, therefore will get sick in cold, and I will die. So we don't necessarily consciously go through this process, but it's there underlying. You had the
right.
chance to leave a moment where it was like very clear. But I think every form of rejection of no feels like a threat to your life. So my question is, how did you see that manifest later in your life? And especially if there were crucial moments where you felt like, oh, I'm ready to die. So this is like, and therefore that gave you the advantage, the upper edge on the story.
Yeah, so it's funny. Look, let me relate an experience to you about this, because after all of this, and as I started to try and understand myself and figure out all of my learnings, I actually was asked to negotiate against. Um, I don't like using the word against. To negotiate with some warlords in Africa, and
Mm.
they had taken possession of a pretty large asset that belonged to a company. And so this had to be done, it couldn't be done face to face, it had to be done remote. I had to guide the person who was doing it. And the way that it had to be done was I could only hear what was going on. But I asked another one to pay attention to everything that's going on with the guy who is talking and the people around him. And I said, you must pay attention. I don't want you making no notes. I just want you to observe, and then I will ask you questions. And when they had the breaks and when they could, they'd come out and they'd get on the phone with me, and I'd say, okay, look, I heard him say this. What was the reaction when you said what you said back? How was this? How was that? And then I would visualize that moment and try and
Wow.
picture the exact scenario that they're going through. And then I would tell them, okay, well, when you go back in, you need to act like this and do this and do this and keep your peace. And then I remember at one point, things got very heated. And I said and then I was guiding this guy and I said, look, breathe deeply, breathe deeply. I said, now I need you to scream, yeah? Listen, let's all fucking calm down. I said, you've got to do it with conviction. Don't do it from a weak spot. Just say, let's calm the fuck down here and sort this problem out, because otherwise it's going to become worse for you, me, and everybody. I said, you need to say it with force. You need to do it right now. And then I heard him. And then I said, right now, maintain eye contact, maintain eye contact, maintain eye contact, and slow your breathing down. Watch him, watch his nostrils and see if he does the same. And then he kind of paced him down. And I said, right, okay, now continue. So this, right, was done remotely. I mean, I've done this physically around people as well. But again, having learned the fear and then learning how to control that within myself and then actually getting people to control it in themselves. So when they're feeling that at that point, they're so scared, and I kind of bring them down from it. And then the other thing that I do is with all the negotiation stuff that I do, I kind of gamify it now. It's become a game. So I don't see myself in the seat and I don't see the others. I actually see a bird's eye view and an observer from the side and somebody sitting on the opposite side. It's kind of crazy, right? When I explain it to people, they're like, shit, man, what's this guy on? But it is this kind of matrix thing, Sebastian, where I'm here, I'm looking at it from all angles, but I don't look at it through my eyes because my eyes are only recording. And then, when I close my eyes, then I see all the expressions, the body language, and I hear them speak back slowly so that I can see where the tone and the pitch changed. So all of these kind of things have come about through this assimilation, through this experience, through this knowledge.
Yeah, I love that you, when you paint it as a game, what you describe, I don't know what they don't see because I see it. What you're describing, like the bird's view, seeing all the angles, and almost like what it sounds like also when you describe it, when you say game, I think where some people might disconnect is that they might feel, but this is important, this is serious, or some life arts art play, or like, if it's even just financial, we might have to lay off employees. So it's
It
like
is.
serious. And
It
having this
is.
capacity to say, well, the more serious you find it, the less likely you are to take the right decision because you're just
Yes.
attached to one perspective.
Correct. Correct. Attachment is where the problem is. So when you gamify it and you look upon it as an interaction and as a game, as a dance of toing and froing and spinning them and dipping them and all this kind of
Ah,
stuff, look, it goes. There's
mm,
no pain. There's not going to be pain. What's the worst shit that's going to happen? They're going to say no. For fuck's sake, it's not going to ruin your bloody life. Because you know what, if they say no to you, then you go and you figure out another angle. And before you came to that table, if I prepared you, then you would know that you have another option that you can
mm,
then go to. So don't let it be the be all and the end all, because it isn't. Because
mm,
don't give that much power to the situation. Because by
mm.
giving a power to the situation, you give power to the person on the other side. And it's like, look, it doesn't need to be that way. So that's kind of how it breaks
Yeah,
down.
I find it beautiful, and I feel it's not even a question of winning over the other person. It's really about what is the best outcome possible for everybody, and it's and that I feel like when we're in the situation, like I've coached a lot of people on sales, and there's this feeling that it has to be either about me, the seller, or about them, their benefit, instead of saying, no, actually, And especially I feel, and that's a theory of mine, but Zoom made it worse because now instead of, when you're looking at a proposal and you're talking about body
Yes.
language, but we're sitting side by side, we're looking in the same direction at the paper, we're creating this together. Whereas
Yes.
Zoom forces us to be in these most confrontational positions.
Confrontational, yes. Yeah.
So we're
It's a
like,
confrontational face to face, man. It's like we're head
it's
on,
like you're going my way or you go my way instead of like, no, we're moving in the same way. And I
Right.
actually train people to try to internally, even though I have to be facing you, internally feel like I'm next to you, which
Right.
changes completely the conversation.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, yeah. And it's key what you're saying here, Sebastian. And that was one of the very very first things actually. Uh, uh, that was one of my earliest things that I did many years ago. A friend of mine, he'd been to university and he trained as a solicitor. He'd done his training and he came and he set up his own office. Then he invited me down to come down for a meeting with him and look at his new office. And I went over and then. Um, it was getting close to lunchtime and he says, look, hang around, I've got a meeting with a potential investor. You can either join us or once I've finished in the meeting, I'll come out and we'll go grab some lunch. So I watched how they set up the room. They went in and the three of them, they sat on one side of the table and the investor came in and they had a chair set on the opposite side of the table. And I just thought, oh, you know what, these guys are going to screw this up. So as they started the meeting, I went in and then he said to the guy, he said, oh, look, I hope you don't mind. My friend Alan's going to join us. And he said, no, I don't mind. So I pulled up a chair next to the investor. And what I did was I angled his chair and angled mine so that we would both be together,
Yeah.
right? And on off kilter to them. So it wasn't confrontational. And then as they were talking and stuff, and then where I thought they had said the message in the wrong kind of way, I kind of interrupted and then diffused it a little bit. And then when the meeting finished, he was really happy and he says, oh, look, what do you do? And I said, look, I run a few businesses and I actually kind of, I've been putting deals together myself and brokering stuff. And he said, well, would you work for me? Because he said, look, you're a big help in there. And I said, yeah, sure. And from there, word of mouth referrals from that guy that resulted in a good few years of work. But it was a key, man. Just that tweak, Sebastian, of shoulder to shoulder and slightly off
Yeah.
made a world of difference, man. It made a world of
Yeah.
difference.
100%. When I teach these things, and it seems like you do too, I just want to say people are obsessed with technicality of like, but what is it? No, just think emotionally, where are you, with or against? And even when you were talking about these negotiations with the warlords, you corrected your vocabulary from against to with because
Yeah,
actually we're trying to find the best outcome for them because they don't want to die either, the warlords are. So you're trying to build this situation together. So as a consequence, let's sit on the same side of the table. No, it's
right,
not the
right.
technique, it's more like a general posture.
Of
Man,
course, yeah.
there's
And
so much.
I was going to say, Sebastian,
Yeah.
so then going back to where I was in a position where these interrogators were trying to terrorize me. And I remember one of them, he came in and he said, oh, Mr. And I stood there, right? Because they always put me in stress positions. So I'm stood in this room with my arms up and he comes in and he looks at me and he says, oh, look at you, Mr. Allen. You are standing so strong. I'm proud. We are going to break you. And I thought, okay, that's what you think. And then so with them, it was a case of when I wanted to create antagonism with them, I would be very straight on, square shoulders, and then either if they were talking, if their volume was low, I would raise mine, and if their volume was loud, I would lower mine. But then
Wow.
I would, but my eyes were fixed on them, and my posture was fixed on them, and it was an aggressive posture. And then I remember one time they were sat on the table in front of me, the two of them, and I'm looking at him, and he said, "Oh, Mr. Allen," he said, "I have this feeling." He said, "You want to hit me?" And I says, "No." I says, "Before your pals can come in," I said, "I can kill you before your reinforcements come in this room." And I leant over the table, looked at him, and I said it to him straight. I said, I can kill you before your other pals. I can kill the two of you here before your pals come in. And then, man, that unnerved them. They got up and they said, right, get over there. And they shot out of the room. And I saw the pupils go dilate, right? I saw the fear and they had to run out of the room, man. So it was all of these kind of things. It makes a key difference, man, when you're doing stuff, whether it's in business, in normal communication, whatever, positioning, tones, all of these things, absolutely key.
Yeah, status games, like where you position yourself, like intentionally to create the best outcome again. Man, I think we could go for another hour without doubt. There's so many other questions I want to ask you, but let's keep that for another conversation.
Sure.
And but I feel like there's already so much, and as I told you, I want to keep those sweet and short so we can hit this thing. That I feel like there's already so much that needs to be digested just from this conversation.
Right.
And before we go, I always ask my guests if there was one nugget of wisdom, one little thing, something you can say in 1 minute, but you say, you know what, based on the conversation we had, if you had to summarize that into just 1 minute for our audience to go and apply that to their life right now, what would that be?
No matter what you're facing, no matter what the situation is, right there in that moment, you have to be present. Don't start thinking of what's happened to lead you to there, and don't start thinking what's going to happen, because you don't know yet. You're not there yet. So if you center yourself in that moment of where you think your pain is, and you just stop and you just identify what is it that is niggling you, right? Without future projection, without past regression, you will get stillness of your mind, and you'll actually gain an understanding of yourself. And it's critical. And that's it.
Wow. Yes, and that really concludes everything you said before, going back to that presence in these very highly pressure moments.
Right.
Man, Alan, it's been an honor. If people want to find out more about you or hire you and continue the journey with you, where should they go?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Alam Ghafoor, AlamGhafoor. Drop me a message. You can go on my Instagram page. There's actually what I'd like to offer, Sebastian, is I have it's a one-page framework of how I do my negotiations, and it's called Innocent, and it breaks down into influence, negotiation, observation, calibration, elicitation, natural, and trust. So all of these elements are components of an effective negotiation. So it's a one-page framework. It just gives you some guidance. If you go on my Instagram, drop your email, I'll send you that
I'll put all the links in the show notes.
Oh, sure. And my book's available on Amazon, Innocent Terrorist. It actually breaks down the interaction, goes through what I experienced, and gives you an understanding. But yeah, anybody listening, you want some advice, you want some consulting, you want me to take care of something for you, definitely reach out to me. I'm here to help.
He won't budge in the negotiation. Alan will be there for you to keep your calm and get the outcome you're looking for. It's so good. Yeah. Man, that was an amazing episode. Thank you so much to everybody watching or listening to the podcast. It's been, again, mind-blowing, a lot of nuggets of wisdom. I want to say, if you go apply that, I know because I've applied some of this. I was fortunate enough not to go through this highly threatening situation, but I know how much what Alan shared today is valuable, and I can learn even more how to practice it from everything he shared today. That was so rich. And please reach out to him. And I want to go and download this framework and read the book, because I feel like there's so much we haven't covered today. So go check this out. But most importantly, I want to remind you one thing. Wisdom is when you start applying this knowledge, when you start embodying this. So if you listen to this and you think it's nice, we haven't moved. There's no transformation. We don't want more information. You have overload of this. So the next time you find yourself in this situation where you feel like your life is threatened in a way, maybe because like the girl you wanted is going away or whatever. It doesn't have to be that dramatic as it was for Alam, but connect to that feeling, connect to these fears and see how you can gamify that, as Alam said, and practice this. Practice this even in the most subtle situation, even at the bakery if you want to get an extra piece of bread. Like practice in the situation when it doesn't matter. So when it does matter, as Alam said, he was practicing since he was a child. So go practice this so that you can start embodying this wisdom, because I believe, and look at Adam or listen to more to him, that really changed his life. That actually saved his life, to be more specific. So, dear audience, go and take action on these nuggets of wisdom. I will be tuning in with you on the next episode. In the meantime, subscribe, like, share, comment, reach out. If you have more questions, if you want to send our guest to the show, or if you feel like you should share your own nuggets of wisdom, I'll be delighted to have you on. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon.